Welcome, everyone, to the launch session of the Gender Equity Learning and Innovation Network. My name is Kimberly Eason. I am the founder and the CEO of Equal Origins. I'm here together with my colleague Becca Morahan, who has been working with Equal Origins for 10 years now. We have just celebrated our 10 years of progress, and I'll talk a little bit more about Equal Origins as we get started. I also want to highlight that we have a series of other guests with us, and we'll be inviting several of them to speak during the course of the hour. Want to welcome everyone from wherever you're joining. We're thrilled to have this opportunity to begin to engage on this topic of gender equity in the cocoa sector. We will also be, of course, inviting those of you that may be from the coffee sector, and to note that this is specifically focused on cocoa. Equal Origins has had 10 years of working in a systemic approach to integrate gender equity across supply chains, coffee and cocoa. We have a very clear mission that this is not about sideline projects, although of course any kind of project that highlights the important role of female farmers is critical. What we're looking to do is really embed a gender approach across everything that we're funding and implementing in the cocoa supply chains. It really needs to become part of a core business and sustainability practice. There's data that indicates when gender equity is included as a core business practice, outcomes improve. We created, with support of industry partners about 5 years ago, a tool called the Gender Equity Index. That is the foundation of the work that we're going to be talking about within the GENLIN, and also within the work with ECOM and our other partners. It's a structured diagnostic tool. It's actually free. It's available in multiple languages, and it's a tool for assessing gender integration across the way service provision teams, whether it be private sector actors, governments, development actors, and farmer cooperatives, how gender equity is being embedded across all the work that's being done with the farmers and others that are benefiting from sustainability programming. And then we work directly with sustainability teams and service delivery teams at Origin. The idea is really to translate evidence into action, helping to build the capacity of teams. Many teams have been working on this issue for a number of years. And the opportunity with the Gender Equity Index approach is to strengthen that capacity and help leadership be able to understand the priorities that Origin teams and practitioners have, and to make sure that there is adequate funding and support for those teams to take action on structured gender equity development plans informed by the Gender Equity Index. As Equal Origins, since we were founded 10 years ago, we knew early on, and we had an idea of the importance of a sort of learning and innovation community. And that this is something that we're very excited to be launching today, because we now have the 10 years of experience and partnership. And now, with support of ECOM and SWISSCO, we're finally able to realize this vision. So with that, I'm going to invite Pam Schreier to share a few words. Pam has been a key partner with Equal Origins for a number of years now. So Pam, please welcome and share a few words.
Hi everyone. I'm Pam Schreier. I'm the Global Head of Sustainability for ECOM, for Cocoa, ECOM Cocoa. And thank you, Kimberly, for inviting me. And thanks everyone else for joining and making the time to participate in our launch of this joint gender learning and innovation platform. We are very excited to kick it off. At ECOM, we have been working with Equal Origins for the last 6 years, about. We were part of the initial development of the Gender Equity Index because, as Kimberly said, we're quite aligned in this vision that we wanted to incorporate gender into our larger sustainability strategy, but we didn't want to just have specific women-focused programming, but rather find a way where we can incorporate it into everything we do. And one of the first steps in that was trying to work with our teams to make sure that they understand kind of all the details around gender work and what that means, and then what are the processes they could take to make sure it's more incorporated in what they do day to day with farmers in the field. So as part of the industry advisory group, we worked with Equal Origins to develop the GEI and then tested it and then took on the kind of larger goal to make sure we implemented it in all the origins where we directly source cocoa. So our teams have now completed that initial KPI, which was to carry out the GEI and develop gender action plans. And during that process, what we saw a lot is that while the teams were very involved in the process, they kind of didn't know where to go from there. So they needed access to resources and other examples of how they could actually make changes and do more in the gender space. So that's kind of how we got to where we are today, right? We now have these action plans, and now we want our teams and wider teams and other companies who are in the same place to have access to resources to help them incorporate their learnings into their actual day-to-day work. So we're very excited about this initiative and working with the partners that are involved in it. And I'll hand it back over to Kimberly and Becca to explain more of what the details of the platform will include.
Thanks so much, Pam. And before we do that, I'd like to invite Nicoletta from SWISSCO to say a few words about their support of this project.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. It's a pleasure to be here. So I'm Nicoletta Lumaldo. I'm a Deputy Managing Director of both the Swiss Platform for Sustainable Cocoa and the Swiss Sustainable Coffee Platform. For us, this topic is extremely relevant. Kimberly knows that we have been working on this and trying to deepen it for quite a while. Last year, we managed to get approved our roadmaps with 6 ambitions. And instead of wanting to have gender as a topic, as an ambition in itself, we decided to have it as a cross topic, mainstreaming it throughout all of the other ambitions, because we see that there is an importance of having a gender lens for all of the different activities that we and our members are doing. And more importantly, we believe that one of our core pillars being the learning and the networking around our membership on the different topics, this GENLIN and these webinar series to be extremely interesting and important for both our members in the coffee and in the cocoa sector. So thank you so much for organizing this, and I'm really looking forward to hearing more and everything about it.
Thank you so much, Nicoletta. My colleague Becca Morahan has been a part of the Equal Origins team for 10 years now, and she has been leading the work not only with the ECOM teams, but other service providers, as well as with many farmer organizations. And so I would like to have her talk about what we've learned. Becca?
Thanks, Kimberly. And before I begin, I just wanted to invite at any point during the presentation any questions or comments in using the Q&A function on the platform, and we'll create a bit of space at the end to come to those, and we'll also have some polls in a moment to gather some feedback from you. But yes, just wanted to echo thanks to everybody for being here. It's really exciting to be launching this initiative with you. And we wanted to share with you, as Kimberly said, we've had the privilege of working with quite a few different EAS teams over the last number of years, both in Africa and Latin America. And our work has been using the GEI, but also working with those teams to identify their priorities of what they want to strengthen. And so we wanted to, although that is a kind of tailored process with each team, there are some common themes which have emerged over the years. So we wanted to highlight some of those because these have really informed our thinking about the webinar series and about the resources that we're going to be putting together on the platform and the themes of the group sessions. So, sorry, I'm just going to get. So the first one we wanted to highlight was the importance of cross-functional structures. So committees which bring together different groups from human resources, from technical teams together to, sorry, I'm going to to work together cross teams and cross functions, because that's a really important part of working on gender equity. we also wanted to highlight the importance of developing policies. There's a lot of really excellent practice in different teams, but there was a recognition of the need to formalize that practice and to really look at, not only at the way that teams work with farmers, but also at their own internal functioning. There was also a great emphasis on strengthening in-house capacity. So there's an important to work with local gender experts, but also there's a real interest in building the capacity of teams to work particularly on two areas. So to engage in gender analysis in order to inform gender responsive program and service design, but also to support technical teams to work more inclusively in the delivery of services and the way that training is delivered and the way that they engage with women. So I think there's a lot of really excellent practice in this area, but there's also a need to sort of systematize that and to have cross-learning between different teams and to really think about how staff see gender equity as part of their mandate, cutting across all different kinds of initiatives and projects. So that's partly about training, it's partly about sensitization, it's about building in aspects like KPIs into the way that teams work with their staff. And lastly, I think there's a real interest in looking at data collection, so how data collection can be more gender responsive, how data that's already being collected, for example, for certification can be used. There's a lot of data that's being routinely collected. How can that be used? How can that contribute to gender analysis? And also crucially, how we can measure at scale indicators beyond attendance, beyond participation, how we can start to really demonstrate empowerment, transformation of gender relations. This work is taking place, but it's really, there's a real common interest in developing those indicators which are feasible to measure. So these are some of the themes that we kept seeing were recurring across these different teams, and where these teams have prioritized these and said these are the things that we want to be working on over the coming years. And so I think we wanted to create this space of GenLin, as has been said, to facilitate that cross-learning, to really make the most of what the good practice is in the different teams, to share tools, to be able to really look at what's out there and find the most useful resources for practitioners. And I think we also just wanted to highlight that although there are some really key thematic areas that come up around gender in the cocoa sector, for example, work on child labour and gender equity, work on living income, for example, work on women's economic empowerment. And so this is a slightly different way into the topic, but we're really interested to see how we can use the opportunity of the webinars and the resource library to look at sort of how those themes interact with these priority areas of the teams. So I think we can go to the next slide. So yeah, I'll hand back to you, Kimberly. Thanks.
Over the past 4+ years that we've been working with the diagnostic tool, and working with all of the teams and hearing from a number of you, we really have a good sense of what the gaps are. And I think many of you that are participating can also you have a sense of what those gaps are. And the Gender Equity Learning and Innovation Network is our opportunity to work together to see how we can close them. And not only how we close them, but then how do we communicate broadly across the sector, also to decision makers at executive leadership level, so that we can help to drive change through investment and program design that helps to facilitate and build out a case for greater support of the practitioner work at the field level. And the GenLin it's a platform. It is meant to be a platform for learning and innovation to accelerate sector progress. So I want to tell you a little bit about what's included in the platform and what we're going to be doing together. And to highlight that today, we have the basics of the platform in place, and we will be building it together with your input over the coming months as we move forward. I want to start by saying who this is for. This is for practitioners, like many of you that have joined us today, sustainability staff, monitoring and evaluation leads, field teams. And the idea is really to have practical tools and sharing peer experience from the Gender Equity Index and the diagnostic and implementation of plans for gender integration. So these are real approaches, real practical experience from teams that are experiencing challenges, that have had success. How do we better collect data? How do we communicate about that data? And using shared frameworks to track the outcomes that we're seeing that actually hold up and that we can then communicate as the real difference that this work makes to addressing business risks and contributing to sustainability outcomes broadly. And then separately, of course, leadership and decision makers are invited to participate in these sessions. At the same time, we will be having a separate executive edition of our Better Together workshop. And the idea there is that we're really able to communicate the importance of gender integration across everything that we're doing in the cocoa supply chain, so that we can see gender equity as a strategic supply chain lever with real evidence to support internal decisions, external commitments, including budgeting and decision-making around program design. Across this is the broader sector, and where we also envision others across the sector that may want to participate can also play a part in order to be able to share in the learnings and provide additional expertise in how we're innovating moving forward. So there are 4 key components of the GenLin. One is the thematic sessions. So this is the launch to those. We will be having 4 thematic sessions over the next year. Becca will talk a little bit about what the themes will be for those sessions. And as she pointed to, we'll be getting your input on those as well. We have a resource library and platform, which in a moment I'll flip over and show that to you. The executive edition workshop, which I just shared the details about. And then we'll be taking the outcomes from the thematic sessions into Creative Commons output. So this is really part of what we mean by learning, and of course the foundation that SWISSCO has provided by their whole learning, the funding that they give for sector learning. And so everything that we're doing here will be available publicly to help forward the learning and innovation that will be happening over the course of the year and beyond. I want to highlight, it's key that in these conversations that we're having in the thematic sessions, that you all feel at liberty to share with real candor your challenges. I know we're all of us that are here today, we're committed to this issue. We're committed to the well-being of families and communities in the cocoa sector. And this work is hard. The context is changing on a daily basis. We're seeing more and more risks. We see attention being diverted from gender equity into other things. And what we know is that we cannot reach our sustainability goals without ensuring that the people that do the work have access to the services and tools and training that they need to be successful. So we know, all of us on this call recognize that it's challenging, and we have this opportunity to come together and to really be candid about the challenges that we're facing, and of course celebrate our successes, share those practices that are working well, and also be real about where we're stumbling. And so the key is that this is confidential in terms of nothing will ever be said that, Deborah said this or Sophie said that. It doesn't necessarily come from a particular team or a particular origin. We really want to make sure that you feel that this is a space that you can share candidly your challenges. And then the successes, as much as you want us to promote your successes, we want to do that, your successes and good practices, because that's what really helps us learn and innovate and scale this work together. The Gender Equity Learning and Innovation Network has a platform, and the platform is, as I mentioned, in development. I want to flip over to show you a little bit of what it looks like so far. We will be inviting anyone who wants to offer resources. There's a lot of good stuff out there. We have particular things that we want to prioritize, and we also want to make sure that we're inviting and elevating resources that you all see as priority for sharing as well. So research tools and case studies, building these together with the folks that we've already been working with, but also with those of you that are coming into the GenLin. And we want to grow with every session. We want to be building out this resource library. So I'm going to quickly flip over to show you what this looks like. So the resource library is open access. We also want each of you that wants to participate to register so that we can make sure that we're including you in the invitations to all of the thematic sessions and any updates, or when there's a key resource that we want to highlight, that you're registered so that we can communicate with you. We have different categories that you can click into and browse in the different folders to see what's available. So right now, it still is quite top line in terms of the things that are available. And as I mentioned, we will want to make sure that we're including resources from you along the way. With that, I want to turn over to Becca. Becca has been building out the ideas for the thematic sessions that we'll be hosting over the next year. You see the dates there. We have the first one on May 13th. We will send out links for the other sessions also when we send out the follow-up email to this session. Becca?
Thanks. So yeah, so as I mentioned, we've been developing the ideas for these sessions very much based on the priorities of the teams that we've been working with over the years. So we've defined the first session as really being about laying the foundation. So looking at those structures, those gender committees, those ways of working across teams of different functions, across regional teams, for example, and the process and the outcome of policy development. So what, some examples of policies, we'll be inviting speakers from within the network of ES providers that we work with, and also externally, to share their experience. So it's going to be very much a sort of practical, peer-led, practitioner-focused session on how you do that, how you create effective structures, what the experiences have been and what's worked, what hasn't. We've also started to design the following 3 sessions, but and I'll just go over those now, but there's the opportunity right now actually to input into which of these topics and topic areas are of most interest to you. So in a moment, we'll do a poll and you will be able to, in fact, that's come up. So you can take a moment now to just read through those. So we've got the first 2, which are covered in the initial webinar, building cross-functional structures for gender equity. The second is gender policy development. Also, we'd be interested to know if is a priority for you to work on staff capacity in gender, in particular on gender analysis, program design, and crucially approaches to reaching farming women directly through services. Another option would be to focus on gender responsive data collection and gender analysis. So looking at how you gather information in a participatory way, how you improve the quality of the data that you have, making better use of the data that you collect ordinarily. The next one would be about a sort of broader focus, which I think we would come to at the moment. We're thinking in our final webinar, which is really about integrating this gender lens into the core business functions. So looking at risk management, budgeting, gender responsive budgeting, kind of sustainability planning at a slightly more executive level, internal communications, and lastly, gender responsive monitoring and evaluation. So that's really about how you develop indicators beyond measuring women who participate, which is one that's commonly measured, which are both practical and meaningful to track. And then there's an option for other. If you have other ideas and suggestions, we would really welcome them, and you can use the Q&A function to suggest other topics. But yeah, if you'd like to just take a moment, it's multiple choice, so you can choose as many as you like. But it would just be interesting to see, which of these you would be interested to see as a focus for a kind of practical learning webinar session over the coming year. And we will take into account, we'll have a look at the results in a minute, and we'll take those into account in terms of shaping the future sessions. So I'll just take a moment for people to read through and respond. So Laura, I think, will you let us know when there's... Oh, we go. Okay. So can everyone see those results? So we've got about a third for the first two, 33%, who are interested in the structures and the policy development. Our highest score is on staff capacity development, which I think makes sense. I think that's a real interest and priority for many teams, closely followed by gender responsive data collection and gender analysis. So yeah, so I think at the moment, our second webinar is we're planning to focus actually on points C and D together. So that's very promising. And then we have about half the participants focusing on integrating a gender lens into core business functions. And then about, yeah, in fact, the lowest percentage, which is interesting, 29%, although still almost a third of people interested in gender responsive MEL. So that's very helpful. We haven't had other suggestions at the moment, but we can, as you say, we're very welcoming of other suggestions. And we wanted to also just do a quick second poll, just with a slightly broader focus of what would really make the GenLin a valuable platform for you. So the first option is, are you interested in sessions which address current challenges, and are not limited to theoretical content, but to have a practical focus on the things that are currently a challenge within your team? The second is whether you would like to focus on practical tools and templates that you can use immediately without significant adaptation. So sort of off-the-shelf tools that could be adapted easily to your context. Are you interested in access to what peers at other organizations are doing? A space to raise difficult questions without it reflecting on your organization's performance. So sort of in a sense, a confidential space where you could share quite candidly what the challenges are that you're experiencing. Is it important for the time commitment to be manageable? I imagine that's a given for everybody, but yeah, to really keep those sessions focused and time efficient. Or are you also interested in connection to senior leadership conversations, support for aligning gender strategically within your organization, and really having support to see how it relates and supports other areas of sustainability? So again, these are multiple choice. You can choose as many as apply to you, just to give us a sense of what would really optimize your engagement with the platform. So thank you to Laura for her help with this. I think she'll share the results once there are enough responses. So that's interesting. So yeah, so the first two are getting the most votes. So we've got 67% sessions which are addressing current challenges and are not just limited to theoretical content, and most importantly, practical tools and templates that can be used without significant adaptation. So that's something that can really inform what kinds of materials we include in the resource library. Next most voted is access to what peers at other organizations are doing. So that's really helpful for us to understand that peer sharing element is of interest to more than half of you. And the manageable time commitment, I think 50% of you have chosen that. And then followed by a space to raise difficult questions. So that was chosen by 38% of you. And then lastly, connection to senior leadership conversations. Okay, so that suggests, yeah, that's 33%, which suggests that, yeah, the more sort of practical aspects are really what teams, what users are looking for, which is really helpful for us. So thank you very much. And we just wanted to thank you for that input. That's very welcome and helpful in shaping our next steps. And we wanted to invite, if we can move to the next slide. So,
I think you can go ahead and invite them.
okay, yeah, great. All right. Thanks so much. So no, we're very pleased to hear directly from two colleagues from two ECOM teams that we've been working with over the last few years. So we have, first I wanted to invite Debbie Asamoah Antwi, who's a gender specialist working at ECOM Ghana, to say a few words about her experience of engaging with the GEI, with the tool, and what some of their current priorities that they're working on in gender are. So Debbie, please feel free to unmute and speak to those points. Thank you.
Hello, Becca.
Hi.
Thank you very much. Actually, ECOM Ghana have a transformative experience with a gender equity index. In 2021, ECOM Ghana partnered with USAID through Tetra Tech to implement a gender mainstreaming initiative. And we started with a baseline survey. And through this partnership, Equal Origins supported ECOM Ghana to conduct a gender equity index assessment. And this was for ECOM to determine our gender performance score. And this gender equity index assessment helped ECOM to identify the gender gaps. So based on the findings, Tetra Tech together with ECOM, Tetra Tech supported ECOM to develop a gender equality and social inclusion strategy. So that is what we've been using since 2023. So from the gender equity index, we were able to develop the gender equality and social inclusion strategy because that index helped us to identify the gaps. So we developed a GESI strategy, which is currently in use, and as I said earlier on, since 2023. In addition to that, we also employed or recruited a gender specialist who is taking charge of or responsible for all issues of gender and coordinating and overseeing all gender relating activities, which is actually myself. So another way to the gender equity index, which maybe we don't talk about, also creates employment for others too. It also helped ECOM for us to identify and assess barriers that faced by women within our cocoa supply chain and those who access ECOM services, and also for us to develop gender responsive strategies to address those issues that we identified. And it has also helped us to conduct capacity building sessions for our staff and those within the ECOM supply chain. And this was with the first gender equality index assessment that we had. So with the recent one, which is, I would say, is an up-to-date version of the gender equity index, it has also highlighted several priority areas for us to focus now, which will be part of our goals this year in ECOM Ghana for us to achieve gender equity in our supply chain and our operations too. So with that, these are some of the areas or the priority areas that requires action, which we are going to take. And this is all from the Gender Equity Index, that assessment that ECOM took. So this time, we are also going to develop gender action checklists for field visits. And we also conduct periodic refresher gender coaching for staff. It has come up again from the Gender Equity Index that we have to train finance and program managers on gender responsive budgeting. It is actually a priority area that we have to look at. And also, we are going to review our recruitment advertisements to ensure that we eliminate all the unintentional gender biased languages. And lastly, it's a lot. I just because of time factor, I picked a few to talk about, but we have a lot that we are going to look at this year. We also want to track potential negative unintended consequences of gender interventions and develop appropriate mitigation measures. So these are some of the things that the Gender Equity Index has highlighted for us, and we are seeing it as priority areas within ECOM that we have to attend to for us to achieve gender equality and gender equity. So overall, the GEI process has provided ECOM with a strong evidence-based and advanced our gender equality and social inclusion strategy. It has also strengthened accountability, and it's also ensuring that gender considerations are systematically embedded across all levels of our organization. So you bear with me why I said ECOM Ghana has a transformative experience when it comes to gender equity index. Thank you very much, Becca.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for that very comprehensive intervention. That was great. And thank you. We'd like to also invite Sophie Mbange, who's the SMS manager from AMS Cameroon. So yeah, Sophie, please feel free to unmute and contribute your perspectives on working with the GEI and what. Sorry, go ahead, Sophie.
I think Sophie is left as a panelist and came back as an attendee. Laura will need for you to find her as an attendee and unmute her.
Okay.
Let's just give a second.
Of course.
And Becca, I don't know, do you want to go to the next slide and I can come back?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so we'll get Sophie. Oh, here she is. Okay, great.
Okay, fantastic.
Come on. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Becca. Good day, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. My name is Sophie Mbange from AMS Cameroon, part of ECOM Group. In 2024, we started work with Equal Origin and participated in the Better Together workshop, where we conducted the Gender Equity Index and developed our Gender Equity Development Plan. For us, the most important takeaway from this process was the realization that while we had activities targeting women, gender was not yet fully structured or embedded in how we operate as an organization. That was a key shift in perspective. It pushed us to move from seeing gender as a set of activities to understanding it as a system that needs to be integrated across our programs, across our teams, and decision-making processes. Since then, our focus has been on building internal capacity, strengthening gender analysis before program design, and embedding gender into our monitoring system. But more importantly, we have identified that our next challenge is to move beyond participation and start addressing transformation, particularly by engaging both women and men and tackling some of the underlying barriers we see at community level. So for us, the Gender Equity Index was not just a diagnostic tool, it was really a turning point in how we approach gender within AMS Cameroon. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sophie. Great to hear you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, concisely summed up. Thank you. So yes, we also Juan Pacheco, who's the sustainability manager at ECOM Mexico Cacao, also kindly sent some comments to us. This is an example of a team that we've only just been engaging with as part of our recent work, and he also highlighted just, I think, the sort of core message, a sense, and the core thread of our work is really about how working on gender supports and underpins work more broadly on sustainability. And they've been looking at this question of structures. They have a gender committee at the moment that was set up in response to certification requirements, but doesn't really have a kind of clear function within the team. It's been set up as a committee that responds to any issues that are raised, by staff, for example, but it hasn't really had a life beyond that. So the work that they're doing is looking at that, how that committee can be revived and be made into a kind of a team that works on sensitization across the organization and has a role in developing policy and has a kind of series of different functions. So he just wanted to contribute their perspective on their recent experience of engaging with the GEI and developing their own tailored plan.
Thanks, Becca, and thank you to Debbie and to Sophie again for sharing your experience, and to Juan. I want to highlight the critical role of the different partners that are making this work possible. ECOM, of course, has been our lead funding and implementation partner. And then as we've been working with 9 of their origin teams in cocoa over the past several years. We've also been working with ECOM and a number of their coffee teams as well. Equal Origins we are your network host and program anchor. So we're bringing in our expertise as well, working with the Gender Equity Index and the Better Together workshops and the systemic approach that we've been highlighting through the course of this webinar session. SWISSCO, this would not be possible without SWISSCO funding and strategic support and access to the broader membership. And to highlight that this is not only for SWISSCO membership, it is for anyone who wants to participate across the cocoa sector. So please do spread the word to other colleagues and allies. It's really important that we get a great cross-section of individuals, practitioners, who can participate in the Gender Equity Learning and Innovation Network. And then the International Cocoa Initiative, who's also here today. ICI, as you all know, is a significant membership platform, and they are a key knowledge and outreach partner for this work. So we'll be inviting input from ICI and their members as well throughout the course of the year that we're together, and hopefully we'll find enough synergy and momentum that the GENLIN will continue on beyond the year of the program or the project, the funded project. And then, of course, you all, the companies and the organizations that you all represent. We're looking for a diversity of practitioner and field partners, not only companies that have used the Gender Equity Index, but others who have used other sorts of approaches. All of this is relevant and valuable for the conversations that will be taking place through the GENLIN. So thank you to those organizations that have stepped up to fund and to put forward in-kind donations as well. And we're very eager and excited to have others of you join this work. So just a final thing is really what's next. So we do have the first thematic session. So again, we have 4 thematic sessions over the course of the next year. The first one, we are very clear about the theme, which is about laying the foundations, which Becca spoke to. We will be sending a link in the follow-up email that we'll be sending after this webinar. We really encourage you to invite colleagues and other allies to join, both at the practitioner level, within sustainability teams, and others who you think would add value and would find value in what we're doing. It really is the more the merrier. The more practitioners in the room, the stronger the learning and the innovation is going to be. And we invite you to join the platform. There will be a link. It is important that we know that you're interested and committed to being a part of this. The more that you participate, the more that you're going to get out of it. We also know that you're all very busy and you have many priorities. This is meant to support you. It is not meant to be an extra burden. And we want this work to really support and strengthen what you're doing on the ground and in your many responsibilities that you have. We'll be sending out the full calendar of sessions. We have the dates for the first, second, and third sessions already in place. The fourth session will be out in early 2027, and that has not been confirmed yet in terms of the date. And then also the themes to which you've provided input on during the polling session. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining, and we look forward to seeing you on May 13th. Please feel free to reach out with questions. We'll follow up to all of you with an email, as I mentioned. If you have questions, please reach out to program@equalorigins.org, and we'll respond to you right away. I'm not sure, were there any questions? If there are questions, we could take a few minutes to pause and answer those before we sign off. I think we have another 10 minutes or so for Q&A.
Kimberly, there's a question around if the recording will be shared.
Yes, we will make the recording available both in a link in the email, and also we have at Equal Origins, we have a YouTube channel, and I'm not sure, SWISSCO, if you're going to be able to put this on your site, that would be fantastic, and potentially ICI would be willing to do that as well.
Kimberly, if there aren't other questions at the moment in the Q&A, but I don't know if it's worth even unmuting people so that they're able to voice questions at this point, or we could use the Q&A function if there's time. I don't know if there's or comments, or I'm conscious it's been a lot of us talking, and maybe it's I don't know if
sure, if somebody would like to ask a questions, or we can unmute you. Okay. Great. Well, please do feel free to reach out to us with any questions, feedback, ideas. We're really eager to include that. And thank you for joining us today. We're giving you some extra time back in your day, and look forward to seeing you on May 13th, and you'll be receiving an email imminently. And again, I want to thank all of our ECOM partners and SWISSCO and the International Cocoa Initiative for their support and partnership in making this platform possible. And we look forward to seeing you all in our very first thematic session on May 13th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Becca.
Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Sophie.